Live from New York, welcome. This is Spirit Matters. My name's Dayal, along with Kishore Chandra, Achyuta Gopi, our live virtual studio audience on Zoom. We do this live every day, and all of you tuning in podcast land. So glad that you guys are here. Welcome. Very happy that you are with us. How are you doing, Kishore? How are you doing, Achyuta Gopi? What's going on this morning?
I'm ecstatic, even though I might not
Ecstatic.
seem it.
You don't seem it,
Da-
but I believe you. I do believe you.
Dancing last night was really good, and I've been sneaking out of programs early for the past couple of weeks.
To
And
go
yes,
dancing?
no, just to go to sleep. And yesterday I was like, I'm staying till I don't know when. I'm just like gonna stay and dance, and it was very worth it, and it was so nice.
We did stay till I don't know when. Kishore's referring to we had a little festival last night at the Bhakti Center,
Yes,
and there was kirtan and there was dancing, and he did a lot of it. He did do a lot of it.
with the
How are you?
Gopi.
With Achyuta Gopi? They were dancing together. How are you doing this morning, Achyuta?
I have like the best festival hangover. Those are
Mm.
my favorite kinds. It's like when you wake up after the festival and everything's like sore in place because you haven't really danced like that in a while, and it feels all weird. You've got to like really stretch it out, but it's the best feeling in the world. And I
Mm.
felt like I hadn't felt that for like 2 years. Like, we've had some festivals and I was just kind of like tame. And then last night I felt like for Goranga, I kind of really went for it.
Yeah, well,
Sunset.
Vasudev gave that class, and he quoted Nietzsche. Said, "I would only believe in a God who can dance." And so he brought it out, and everyone's like, "I believe, I believe." As they were dancing their brains out.
I'm really happy that Vasudev mentioned that book actually. So Vasudev is our head priest at the Bhakti Center, and he gave this wonderful talk yesterday, and he was talking about Friedrich Nietzsche. And when I was a teenager, of course, very cliche, I was obsessed with Friedrich Nietzsche, and I was like a philosophy person. I was a philosophy major. And I have that book that he was speaking about. It's called Thus Spake Zarathustra, and I have it like right over there, and it's like completely marked up. I used to like mark up all my books and just like highlight everything. And I always really disliked that people would quote Nietzsche with this famous quote of like God is dead because we have killed him, because like that's not actually what he meant. And if you actually like read his philosophy and read his book, like Nietzsche definitely believed in some sort of God. But anyway, to not go on and on about this, the point that Nietzsche was making, and maybe this is a takeoff point for us today. The point was that Nietzsche was making was actually a point that Krishna makes in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharma Parityaja. And the point is give up this ritualistic aspects of religion, right? This kind of like rote aspect of spirituality that's just like I'm just doing it because I was told to do it, or I'm just doing it because I was raised in this way to do it. And it was really interesting. I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before, but I was talking about growing up in a Jehovah's Witness soap opera Latin household. And a lot of it was that, oh no, I remember we had dinner last night with our yoga teacher trainees, who we met for the first time because it was an online yoga teacher training. Anyway, they were asking me, they were like, so like, how did you go from like, Buddhism, because I did martial arts in a Buddhist temple for like 10 years, and then to like this, and then to that. And I was telling them, I was just like, I mean, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, a lot of it was just like my parents. Like I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what was happening. I was just like getting up there and giving speeches in Spanish in a little suit. It was just like, hola, buenos dias, like it was. And I had to go knocking on people's doors like Jehovah's Witnesses, like this. But so much of that is like what, and the question, I think this question we ask a lot in the podcast is like, why do I believe what I believe? And how do I even know that stuff? And that's, I feel like, where spirituality really dives deeper. It's like, why do I actually believe this stuff, as opposed to like, I'm just doing this because my family told me to, or it's the tradition, or it's how I was raised, or it's what society is telling me to do. And so then Vasudev, going back to this talk that he gave yesterday, then went to another quote in that book by Nietzsche that said, I would believe in a God that dances. And he went on and he spoke about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is a saint in our lineage, who we were celebrating last night, because he dances a lot, and that's a whole nother story for another time. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting topic about like religion, quote unquote, for those that can't see me and are just listening, I'm making the air quotes, like religion.
There's all kinds of facial expressions, eye movements, glances,
Because
mannerisms going on here that everyone's like, I missed it.
because religion is one of those words that's almost become like a curse word. It's like religion, it's like we don't say that word, or God, this word. But it has such a what's the word I'm looking for, like an idea of what we think it is versus what it actually is. And it's much more complex than just like air quotes religion. It's much more complex than that. So I want to hear your thoughts on religion, air quotes.
Light topic today, Chitagopi.
Actually, yeah, it's definitely very cool. And I'm kind of I tend to be a little bit more of a blunt person, like especially with the people that know me and like care about me. Like the more you get to know me, the more blunt I can be. But not in it's never really malicious or mean. It's just kind of like, no, let's call it what it is. Like let's actually talk about the thing. And so when it comes down to like religion and switching from using the word God to using divinity or the divine took me a really long time, like years. Because I was just always kind of like, why aren't we let's just call it what it is? Like, it's like, well, I have a problem with that word. So, and I'm like, yeah, but is your problem other people? Is your problem God, the entity? And that's always my thing. Is your problem with religion the people, or is it the actual spiritual beings, these spiritual personalities? And I think coming from a place where everything was about spiritual personalities, um I think that kind of it gives you this like jump start where it's almost like you kind of don't even realize what's happened, what else the world is going through. Because for me, I'm like, well, no, that there's spiritual people. Like God's a person, also my best friend. Like it's my homie. We talk. We have communions, all kinds of, and then you grow up and then you start hearing about what other people are going through. It's like, that's what it's like for you. It's like, well, yeah, I could understand why you'd have an aversion or to have like break out into hives hearing about religion and God. And so much of it is people. So much of it is people. I received a letter from a friend, and they were saying that they'd become so disillusioned even within bhakti. And I was just kind of thinking, I was like, but it's gonna be anywhere. It's gonna be anywhere. There's no place that you're gonna go in any kind of organization, even a whatever it is, when we're dealing with people and their coverings and their egos and their eccentricities and all kinds of stuff, we're gonna have these issues. It's gonna happen. So we can hop from place to place, but it shouldn't be about it shouldn't just be about, oh, I'm going to find this place that doesn't tell me the things that trigger me. There are going to be things that trigger us because the material world is triggering. It's supposed to trigger us. Otherwise, why would we leave? Why would we ever think outside of, like Vasudev last night was talking about mice, mice, they're not thinking outside of like, how do I get out of this mouse existential crisis? Right? They're not like really, they're not. And so they have less triggers. There's nothing to force them out of this situation where it's like, whoa, you don't belong here. You don't belong here. And so we keep trying to fool ourselves into thinking, oh yeah, no, but I belong here because I've been here for so long. And it's like, no, get out. Get out. It's like, they say, is it frogs, unfortunately? Like if you put them straight into
Mm.
boiling water, they want to jump out. But if you slowly turn up the temperature, they just kind of adjust.
Till
And
they die.
as a Taurus earth sign, it is one of the drawbacks of me. It's like I'll just adjust to whatever situation it is, even if it's bad, and like sticking with things too long. And so it's been like a meditation recently. It's like, how do I release the things that are not good for me quicker, rather than thinking, oh, I'll fix it, I'll adjust, I'll fix it, I'll tolerate, I'll fix it. And so I feel like spirituality is one of those things that's supposed to help us figure out, okay, when do we tolerate and when do we get the heck out of the bad situation?
Hmm. Is there a time or example of something that you mentioned? This phrase that stuck to me was, how do I get rid of the things that aren't good for me quicker? And is there a progression in your life, and either of you, that you've seen where that's taken place? Like there was something that wasn't good for you that you held on for a little while, and it took you a while to catch up to it, but then you finally realized that and let it go. And that, have you seen that progression in your life where you've been able to let go of things that aren't good for you quicker?
My God, life. No, it's like all of
Like,
life. Where do we start? How much time do we have? This podcast is.
I'm the same. I'm like, yes, and there's many examples.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, I think we, at least for me, I think I wind up seeing it so much um in relationships, and then even in like living spaces. Like if you ever think about like hoarders and things like nobody, it doesn't start off like that. But instead of giving up the bad situation, it's like, well, I'll adjust, or I convince myself that what I need this because this is part of my identity, or I need to hold on to this because if I don't, the pain of losing will be greater. And we were talking about this yesterday, like this, sitting with this pain and confronting this pain and looking at it going, okay, is the pain of losing that actually better, or am I just telling myself that? Like what, and so I think I've been trying to come to a place where I can start practicing that. I can't necessarily say that I have been wildly successful, although what's the barometer of success in that regard? Like, who knows? But I definitely, I've seen it in relationships. I've seen it in people that, you talk to some, even friends, and then you're like, this friend is actually not good. Like I've had friends and had conversations with them and come back feeling drained and totally just like bereft. And it's taken me so long to just finally be like, you know what, I don't think I can really interact with this person on that particular level. Like we can be friends on a certain level, and then I've got to like draw these boundaries so that I can be healthy.
yeah. I need names, Achuta. I'm looking for names.
Ah,
Who are we dealing with here? I I um I appreciate you sharing that, because when I was thinking it for me, when I asked that question to both of you guys, I was like, I don't know what my answer to that question would be. Like, I know that type of journey resonates deeply, like letting go of things that aren't good for me more quickly, and I think that's a huge sign of maturity as we move through life, and it's hard. Um, but where it came up for me most was people. I was thinking of that. Yeah, like how much we give ourselves, how much I've given myself to people that weren't really interested in giving themselves to me. And it's not their fault. It's not like, oh, you betrayed me. It's like, wait, we never signed this contract. Like I signed them up for a contract, but they never signed up for, like I never shared it with, like I forged their signature. I forged their signature on the contract of like our whatever it was meant to be. And then I just kind of held on to this idea and was getting angry. Why aren't you holding up your end of the contract? And realizing like, it can first start of like, oh, this person's not a good friend, which may or may not be the case. Well, maybe they are a good friend. They just don't consider you like the type of friend you'd want them to, or vice versa. And so I think for me, getting over that space of expecting things from people who never agreed to give that to me in the first place, and just letting that go, and just like letting that go, and being willing to move on from people that aren't necessarily supportive in my journey the way they need to, was what came up for me for sure. And I got names. I can read them. I'm just joking. No, I think in general we all kind of have that experience, and I think that it's um, something that I continue to work on really, and it really is a process of releasing people from little cages that I put them in, and then allowing me to kind of move on with my life in a way that's healthy and nourishing. Lane mentioned, I've noticed I have been able to give up the things that aren't good for me as I have matured, especially stepping into my 30s, and growing closer to Krishna has really sped up the process. LOL. Um, yeah, definitely kind of aging a little bit and getting into that space of yeah, letting certain things go that aren't good for me more quickly. That's a really good barometer. I like that we take with us. It's like how quickly am I able to let go of the things that aren't good for me. Kishore, you said you got some names. Let's hear them.
I've got names. I got names. No, I'm just kidding. I definitely agree with Lane actually that that stepping into my 30s and just getting a little older has definitely sped up the process. And I will say that I'm gonna tie this all together. Right now, I'm having a very like dots being connected, red lines on a map situation right now. So we've been talking about loneliness as opposed to being alone. And we're talking about religion, which is like ritualistic, just like rote activity versus like deep spirituality where I'm like cultivating a relationship with God, with the divine. So get this. If my relationship, something that I've realized, if my relationship starts to become like a rote exercise where we're kind of just going through the motions, where I've noticed that in relationships before, I'm just going through the motions. I'm just seeing this friend because that's what I'm supposed to do. And you mentioned this, Doyal, like our ability to even have a conversation with someone in this age kind of goes down, right? Like you're with someone and you're just on your phones, you're just on your. I remember I had one friend. I'm still kind of friends with him, but not really. And we would get together and it was just like he'd just be on his phone. And I would call him out for it. I'd be like, "What are you doing? Like, we're here. Like, let's talk." And he's like, "Stop being so whatever." And I'm just like, "Okay." And so I've noticed that like if my ability to actually come into dialogue with someone, like actually be with someone is not really available to me, then I really start to ask myself the question. I'm just like, do I even want to be here? Like what am I actually doing here? Is this helping me? And I'm being a little bit more selfish. I've learned to be a little bit more selfish as I get older in a good way. It's like, is this helping me? Like, is this helping our friendship? Is this helping anything or not? Right. And but I am someone who suffers from FOMO as a Enneagram type 7. Maybe we can do a whole series on Enneagram types. I'm someone that suffers from FOMO. So I've noticed like the pull of like, oh, like I don't really see we're not growing as friends or as people and like whatever. And I kind of want to call this person out, or I kind of want to call myself out for even putting myself in this situation. But I also don't want to be alone with myself. And there'd be this like pull. And as I got older, I'm just like, actually, I'm okay being alone with myself. Actually, I like being alone with myself. Actually, being alone with myself is an opportunity for me to go deeper into my spiritual practices, to go deeper into like this creative aspect of myself, this dialogue with myself, with my higher power. And but it's a very scary process because even to this day, like sometimes I'll be alone and I'll just be like, I have to call someone, I have to send a message, I have to like do something. And I think it goes back to, here we go, this is where the dots connect. I think it goes back to what we were talking about, like this ritualistic or rote, kind of thing, existence where we're just like playing a part. I do the thing, I'm the friend, I sit down, we talk about whatever, and everything's like very on the surface level versus like how am I actually going deep into this? Like what is the actual experience of this friendship or this partnership or this, mother son thing, whatever relationship it might be? Like what is the actual, what's the stuff? Like I'm also a little bit like you, Achuta. Like I do not like being on the surface. I'm just like, we've known each other for 10 years, let's keep it real, like come on. And so for me, as I've gotten older, I'm just like, if we're not willing to go there and dive deep, like, what are we doing? I'm asking you how the weather is and you're telling me it rained, like, cool. And so I think that when, Krishna says this at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, to abandon, like, the final instruction that he gives to Arjuna is to abandon all types of religion and to surrender to me, and to not worry, to not fear. And I think that that's a huge thing, because it's like when we think of religion, I'm doing the air quotes right now, I
You
really
can just
see
imagine
that word
Krishna's just got like air quotes, like ban all types of religion.
religion. I really think this religion word can stand in for the things that we're just doing kind of mindlessly. We're just kind of just like doing them because someone told us to do it. It's a ritual. We're just doing it because we think that's what's supposed to happen. And that kind of action can take place anywhere in life, right? We're seeing the friend because that's what we're supposed to do. We're just talking to our parents like, hey, yeah, okay, whatever, because that's what we're supposed to do, or that's how it's been habituated. But we're not really going deep. And I think it's because there's a fear of like, well, what if I step out of this, rote, habitual performance that I'm doing on the surface level? And it's scary. Like, it's scary. What if I tell my friend what I actually feel? What if I tell my partner what's actually on my mind? What if I tell my parents what's actually in my heart? And it's like, ooh, that's the scary part, because we're afraid of losing people, and we're afraid like maybe they're not going to come on this deep journey that I'm on with me. And I
Mm,
think that's really where whew, that's where the rub is, because it's like, what if they don't want to go on this journey with me, or what if they can't respect that I'm going on this journey, and what if I lose these people, and what if I end up alone. And
yeah.
that's the scary part.
I I love what you're saying. I love what Jeff said.
I haven't
And
looked at the comments, but I see
he,
that they're going
he mentioned,
crazy.
I absolutely love that
It's blown
ritualistic
up.
participant. We got laugh emojis from Pasha that I missed yesterday. Pasha, no one was laughing at my jokes yesterday. Achuta had to throw in some laugh emojis on your behalf just so that I didn't feel discouraged. But she did good. So there's a lot of beautiful things in here. Like the most recent one from Jeff is I absolutely love that ritualistic participation in relationship. If we can grow meaningful, deeper relationships with others, then that can serve as a paradigm for our relationship with Govinda, God, the divine, the supreme. And I was thinking of this sense of like if I can't have meaningful relationships with other individuals, it's sort of like religion as we're describing it is that sort of surface level religion relationship with God. And why do I engage in surface level or abandon myself in relationship because I'm afraid of losing people? And I think we do the same thing with God. We engage in ritualistic kind of because I feel like, well, if I'm not according to the standard, if I'm not following the rules, if I'm not doing this, then I'm going to lose it. Then like God's going to reject me or I'm going to fall short. And I think that's just the beautiful part of that verse where Krishna says, now forevermore, in air quotes, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender to me, the person. Like, just accept this as a relationship. And he says, do not worry. Like, don't worry about losing me. You're not going to lose me. Like, I'm not going to let you go. Like, I want you to be real with me. I want you to step forward. And that sense of like, really, like, what's the greatest fear? The fear is like, for somebody who's performing some sort of ritualistic religious ceremony, it's like, oh my God, well, if we hear this all the time when people come to the temple at the Bhakti Center, it happens, we just took a trip to India. People are like, I don't want to get it wrong. Like, am I allowed to say this? Am I allowed to wear this? And it's like all these things of not wanting to get it wrong. Like, we're going to kick them out of the retreat. Why are you wearing those yoga pants? Like a tape measure, like, let me measure the length of that top you got on. Oh, it's too short. Get out of here, you know? And so this sense of like not wanting to get it wrong because I'm going to get rejected, which is how we perform in our relationships in this world. Like, how do I have to be in order to not get rejected by relationships in this world? And it leaves us feeling on edge. It leaves us feeling lonely, even when we're technically accepted, because they're not accepting us. They're accepting some version of ourselves that we've created in order to be accepted according to their standards. And when we carry that mentality into religion, it becomes religion. And we're not actually having that personal connection with God because I'm just performing the way I think I'm supposed to perform, but internally I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling alone. I'm feeling I can't be myself. I'm feeling like you don't really know me. And God's saying, you don't even really know me. And I think that verse from the Gita is like, let's get to know each other. And so I think that that beautiful parallel between relationships in this world and relationship with our higher power parallels each other tremendously.
I think it's not just even religion. From the moment we enter into this world, we are being molded and shaped and conditioned by someone, something, everything. And you think about children, the way that it's like, oh well, if you say the wrong thing or put one toe out of line, you go on a timeout, and no one's going to talk to you. You're going to be isolated. Like, that's your punishment. You sit there by yourself and think about what you've done. And so then you start equating this. You sit there and think about what you've done with all of the worst times in your life where you've just felt shame and guilt and rejection, all these things. And it's incredible that from the moment we enter into this place, there's this constant like, and it's actually really a parallel for the whole material world. There's going to be actions and reactions. It's going to be karmic actions and reactions.
Hmm.
But the way that we even mold and shape children, it's this
Yeah.
constant thing. No, you have to say the right thing. You have to act properly. You have to do this properly. You have to do this thing. You have to do that. And I think that, especially in my relationships, I didn't really have friends till I was like 13, 14. So I was forced to learn how to be alone. And then I think when I got into having friendships and relationships and all these kinds of things, it became more of, yeah, but what do I do when I find that thing that I don't like? Like, I remember when I started getting really closer, like with one of my best friends, and I would constantly text him and I'm like, I'm just waiting for you to mess it up. And he's like, what is the deal? Like, why are you like this? And I was like, no, because everybody always messes it up. They go and they mess it up. They do the thing. Then I'm like, oh, there it is. Now you've gotten on my nerves. And I had to
Canceled.
really, right? Like, I had to really come to a place where I was just like, wait a second. Everybody at some point is going to get on my nerves. That's life. Life is going to get on your nerves. And how do I not throw out everything, throw the baby out with the bathwater just over something that I might disagree on? How am I able to then, like you were talking about yesterday, allow and accept that that person's different? So yeah, they're going to have different moods and different rasas and different emotions and all kinds of things, and they may have a differing opinion. They may even have little things that I like, I'm like, whoa, I can't even get down with that. But then how do I also see that, okay, but yeah, I can still go dance with them and get on. Like it doesn't have to be the end of everything. And I find that, especially even in immature relationships, like that, those first like loving relationships, romantic relationships, there's always this fear of like, oh my God, if anybody does anything, then we have to break up. And it's like, life's a marathon. If we broke up with everything, every time anything happened, we'd never have a relationship with anything, anyone, at any time ever. And then still we'd have those issues with ourselves. So it's like, how do it's been a constant journey of like, how do I not break up with everyone at the first sight of
Hmm.
danger, or at the first sight of friction, or at the first sight of like, well, we don't agree on this. Now, what does that mean? Is that a total deal breaker? It's like, no, we just didn't agree. Like, at a certain point, I've been trying to look at it as it's natural to disagree. It's actually completely natural to disagree. It's even natural to have arguments and quarrel. It's even natural to have hypocrisy, because this is what is built into the software of this age and this time. It's
Hmm.
natural. How do we navigate that now? And that's kind of been my exploration.
Yeah, there's so much going on in the chat board. There's so much going on in my mind, and also that not breaking up with God just because something goes a certain way. There's so much there. My computer is about to die, so I'm like in a minor anxiety. I gotta wrap this up. Even though I was like, we're on fire today. Let's just keep it going. I was like, no. It's like Thelma and Louise driving towards the end of the road. Like the cast is on empty. How close to 0% can it get? So we got to ask Kimberly for our takeaways, and then we're going to share our takeaways, and we're going to see how far we get.
Hopefully it doesn't die while I talk.
I really hope I don't die while you're talking.
So a sign of maturity is the ability to quickly let go of things that aren't good for me. And then one last one is dive deeper past the superficial surface of things.
Love it. Love it. I loved everything you're saying, Chute. I would love to well, it's Friday. We're not picking up tomorrow. We're gonna have to carry this into next week on Monday. Um, let's get a quick takeaway from Kishore, from Achute, what you're walking away with, and then we'll wrap this up.
I'm gonna say I really liked what Achita said, that we can't, or the way that I'm feeling it and hearing it is like it's going back to this cancel culture thing. It's like we can't cancel everyone and everything just because a mistake was made, you know? And Dana's talking about boundaries, and I feel like that's a whole nother topic, because I do agree with having healthy boundaries, and I think it takes a lot to get there. But just like, what does something I'm walking away with, or a question I'm walking away with, is what's the difference between, or what's the relationship between tolerance and boundaries? I'm really interested in that.
Well, you know that it'll all tie in with Rom. Okay, we watch me work. We're gonna make it tie in. One takeaway for me is what I loved about what you were saying, Kishore, was I'm learning to be more selfish, and I was like, actually, I want to change that word. I'm actually learning to be conscious of the self, which is what Krishna advises us to do in Bhagavad Gita. I'm learning to be more self-conscious in the best way. Okay, that's it.
Love it, love it, love it. And I'm taking away two things. One is that when my computer is on low, I got to turn down the brightness. That was one of the suggestions that came in. And the other one I'm taking away is what you said, Kishore, and what you kind of sharing, this idea of boundaries and tolerance. Like one.
I think we lost them. I think
Oh
that
my
was it,
goodness.
folks. We'll never
Well,
know. We'll never know what Dial's takeaway was.
okay, like now, well, now you got to come back next week when we start boundaries and tolerance in the Ramayan. Okay, like we
Yes.
we're diving in, we're gonna get there.
We're going to get there. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Next week, Achyuta Gopi is going to be leading us in Tales from the Ramayan, leading up to Ram Nomi on April 10th, and making it applicable in our everyday lives. So it's going to be great. Okay, thank you, everyone, so much. We'll see you Monday morning, and we'll be taking the weekend off. Thank you, Achyuta. Thank you, our listeners. Have a wonderful, beautiful, blessed day.